So far, we've been using the built-in validation that comes with MVC, and we've done some customizing of error messages. And we're going to take a look at some additional ways that you can validate data in MVC. But before we get into that, one thing you do need to be aware of is that the model state object contains all of the data and all of the errors. So when you display a form and you submit it, the data and any errors are contained in this model state object. And that's why if we check if the model state is valid, if it's true, that means that all of the values are good. So if a value is required, it's been filled in correctly. If a number has to be within a range, it's been entered in that range. If a text string has to be less than 20 characters long, it was entered appropriately, and so on. If there is any problem with any data, then model state is valid, is going to be false, and they go back to the view, look at the error message, and fix the problem. ASP.NET MVC uses don't repeat yourself as a core design principle. And so that's referred to as dry. So from a development point of view, it is best practice and encouraged to specify the functionality in one location. And then those business rules and that functionality and behavior are used in the entire application from that one spot. And in MVC, that would be our models. So this does reduce the amount of code that you need to write, and it does make it less error prone because the rules regarding data are all in the different classes which are part of our model. And as I mentioned, we have been using the data annotation attributes for built-in validation with different properties in our models. We're going to talk about some additional ways of validating data. And we're going to look at some data annotation attributes that we haven't talked about yet. The first one is regular expression. You'll notice most programming languages include some type of regular expression to validate data, and MVC does as well. The good news is MVC has been around a really long time. So a lot of these regular expressions are available on the web for you to copy and paste, so you don't have to come up with them on your own. And this particular regular expression is for a phone number. Okay, so you can see that when you use regular expression, in the parentheses, the first thing that you're going to be giving it is that regular expression string, so it knows what it needs to check. Then you're going to give it the error message that you want displayed. Okay, and then you can see that we have a right parenthesis and then that closing bracket at the end. And if you can't remember information on regular expressions, I did include a link here. This should be kind of a refresher for you. So it's basically talking about the different patterns. This would require alphabetic characters. Okay, and if you kind of look through here, it does do a pretty good job of showing different patterns and explaining what they do. So how this would look in a form, if they put in a bogus phone number, this is the type of message that would display. If you're interested in learning more about the phone number validation, I did include a link to that as well. Okay, and this kind of breaks it down for you. There's also a data annotation for file extensions, which would be good if you were going to have them upload, let's say, a graphic or a text file, something that has a very specific extension. So an avatar is a graphic. And so what this is doing is it's requiring the extension, which is the ending after the period, that it be JPEG or JPEG with an E, and that is typically used for photographs. The compare attribute lets you compare one property to another. So if they have entered something and you want to validate that, which is typically used for passwords, is where I normally see it, you would have them enter it again into like a confirmation property, and then you can use the compare attribute to ensure that they are the same. So this is just saying compare email confirm with the email property. Okay, and here's the regular expression for email. At this point in our development process, if we add the data annotations, it should definitely pick them up because it's a change in the model. It should drop our database and recreate it. After we apply data migrations, it's probably not going to pick up the change. So after we execute migrations, then you're going to have to do some additional code to get that update into your application. And so this is kind of for future reference. I do like the console for these migration commands, but you can just see we enable it. We add data migration that we're calling data annotations, and we update the database. And then this is typically how that looks when it runs. Okay, and again, this is not something you need to do at this point in the development process, but for future reference, if you add the data annotations after we've done migrations, you are going to have to go through this process to get those updates into your application.